Sophia's struggle. My mother-in-law's disdain is a constant burden. She looks down on me, frequently criticizing my every move. You can't do anything but cook, she scoffs, her voice dripping with contempt. She has a knack for making me feel inadequate, often barging into our bedroom to rifle through closets and drawers, hurling accusations. Why do you make such a mess? It's no surprise, really. After all, you only graduated middle school. Her disdain for my education, or lack thereof, seems endless. I try to keep my head down, knowing I can't argue back. Living with my mother-in-law since marrying has been nothing short of a nightmare. I'm Sophia. My parents own a small restaurant. My father is a skilled chef, dedicated to his craft, while my mother, who used to work in a cafe, now manages the front of the house with charm and efficiency. Despite its age and distance from the city center, our restaurant is beloved for its food and service, always bustling with customers. Growing up as an only child, I admired my parents deeply and dreamed of one day taking over the family business. I began helping out in the restaurant from a young age. After middle school, I had to take on more responsibilities as my father's health began to fail. Although I wasn't able to replicate his exact flavors, I followed his recipes closely, striving to maintain the restaurant's high standards. At first, I was unsure of my skills, but soon regular customers began complimenting me. Sophia's cooking is delicious. It tastes just like your dad's. Their encouragement motivated me to contribute more, hoping to ease my father's burden. However, being a high school student, balancing work and studies was challenging. One day, a teacher requested a meeting with my parents, expressing concern over my poor attendance and discussing my future. Despite my parents urging me to focus on my studies, I felt torn. This restaurant has been cherished by our family for years, and it's precious to me too. I love both the cooking and this place, I told them, deciding to leave school. My parents, though heartbroken, supported my decision. I completed the dropout process and began working full-time at the restaurant. Years have passed, and I'm now 30. I handle most of the restaurant's operations alone, from opening preparations to closing cleanup, as my father's health issues keep him frequently hospitalized and my mother by his side. One day, as I was working, a man entered the restaurant, despite the closed sign hanging at the entrance. "Something wrong? You look a bit flustered," he said. I cut my finger while prepping, I replied. "Hey, are you okay? Here, take this Band-Aid," he offered. "Thanks, that really helped," I said, accepting it gratefully. He introduced himself as Ted, my boyfriend, who is 2 years younger than me and immersed in family business. I hadn't had many encounters with men, but Ted, a kitchen equipment salesman who frequently visited our restaurant, and I connected and eventually started dating. Ted, caring and skilled in his job, seemed too good to be true at first. I wondered why someone like him would be interested in me, but as time passed, those doubts faded. Now we're about to celebrate our 3rd anniversary together. Ted proposed on our anniversary, suggesting, "Let's get married." There was no reason to decline, so I joyfully accepted his proposal. Although I was concerned about leaving the restaurant, my parents reassured me. "Don't worry about it. We want you to be happy," they said, welcoming the idea of our marriage. Despite my happiness, I felt a twinge of guilt. As our anniversary approached, Ted and his mother came to visit our restaurant for the first time, marking the meeting of our families. Knowing Ted's father had passed away early, I had informed my parents in advance. "I'm so happy we finally met," Ted's mother said with a smile. "My son talks about you all the time." "No, it's our daughter who's been singing your praises," my parents replied, smiling back. "We're grateful to have Ted in our lives. Our daughter's only skill is cooking, but we hope you'll take good care of her." "Let's skip the formalities and enjoy the dinner," Ted suggested, and I began serving the dishes I had prepared. "Everything is wonderful," they exclaimed. "Ted is lucky to have a wife who cooks so well." "Everything is delicious." Ted and his mother enjoyed the meal and conversed happily with my parents. Seeing everyone pleased with the meal I had prepared filled me with immense joy. The meeting between our families concluded on a high note. Ted and I got married soon after. Although we didn't have a formal wedding ceremony due to Ted's busy schedule, moving into a rented house together made me truly feel married. A few months into our marriage, Ted brought up an unexpected proposal. "I'm worried about my mother living alone," he said. I was surprised, but we have a spacious house. Ted continued, I've been thinking of inviting her to live with us starting next week. Given her age, it would be safer for her to be with us in case of emergencies. It was an unexpected suggestion, and we hadn't discussed it beforehand. I was taken aback by Ted's suggestion, but I couldn't find a valid reason to object. In the end, I could only nod in agreement. When we were house hunting, Ted was adamant about getting a detached house, or as I had preferred, a flat or condo. However, I was swayed by his argument that a larger home would be better. I wondered if he had planned this from the start, but I tried not to dwell on it too much. Our newlywed life passed quickly, and soon, living with my mother-in-law became our reality. Ted was away during the weekdays for work and was mostly out on weekends. Although the arrangement was meant to support his mother, I rarely saw him do anything for her. Another issue soon became apparent. My mother-in-law was a completely different person from when we first met. Initially, she had enjoyed my cooking, but now she refused to touch it. "Eating this kind of food will make me sick. Are you feeding my son this?" she would ask. I apologized, saying that perhaps the seasoning was too strong. "Your family's cooking might have been like this, but mine is much more refined and lightly seasoned. It's a shame my son has to eat this every day." Ted still claimed he liked my cooking, but my mother-in-law remained constantly dissatisfied. I decided to try cooking healthier meals that would be more suitable for the elderly, using cookbooks and online resources. Yet she criticized the food as tasteless and unappealing, saying it wasn't nutritious enough and seemed unhealthy. Her complaints extended beyond the food. She would use excuses like back pain or leg pain to avoid helping with household chores. To avoid conflict, I took on the chores myself, only to be met with sarcastic remarks like, "You call this clean? It looks like a trash bin. Well, you did drop out of middle school, so I suppose it's to be expected." After enduring this situation for 3 months, I reached my breaking point. When I tried to talk to Ted about his mother, he brushed me off, saying he was too tired from work. His company had recently gone through major layoffs, which had increased his workload and required him to work late hours. Despite this, I was determined to address the issue with my mother-in-law before Ted went to work. I asked Ted if we could talk outside after work tonight, since my mother-in-law was at home and I knew it wouldn't be possible to have a calm discussion there. Ted complained about being swamped with work, but I earnestly begged him, saying, "Please, I'm begging you." Moved by my plea, he finally agreed. "I think a short meeting should be okay, but really just a little bit," he emphasized. We agreed to meet at a cafe near his office at 8 p.m. to minimize the time I have to spend with my mother-in-law. I prepared dinner in advance and left the house a bit early without informing her, knowing that any encounter would likely lead to more of her usual sharp remarks. Arriving early at the cafe, I decided to take a stroll around the town. Not usually interested in anything beyond cooking, I found the walk surprisingly refreshing. While browsing the shopping mall, I considered picking up something for Ted when I was struck by a sudden realization. My eyes widened in disbelief as I saw Ted walking with another woman. I rubbed my eyes repeatedly, trying to convince myself it wasn't real, but there was no mistaking it. It was definitely Ted. I watched them leave the store and, driven by a mix of shock and curiosity, found myself following them. They secluded themselves in a quiet area and embraced each other in a way that clearly indicated more than just friendship. The sight overwhelmed me, and I broke down in tears, unable to control my emotions. Unable to bear it any longer, I fled the scene and messaged Ted, saying that something urgent had come up and I couldn't meet him that night. Questions swirled in my mind. Since when? Who is she? The image of their intimate moment made me feel nauseous. Somehow, I managed to return home, where my mother-in-law was waiting for me. "Sophia, where have you been? It's not normal to leave without saying a word. If you have any common sense, you usually let us know before going out," she scolded. I didn't have the energy to argue. I silently went to the kitchen, staring at the dinner I had prepared, my mind still reeling from the day's events. The meal I had prepared for my mother-in-law barely touched, and seeing it made me regret making it and brought me to tears once again. That night, I stayed locked in my room. When Ted came home, I couldn't bring myself to see him and chose to ignore him instead. "Sophia, are you awake?" Ted knocked on the door several times. Normally, I would have prepared a snack for him, but there was none tonight. His voice was tinged with frustration. "What's going on?" I adjusted my work schedule and was waiting. It's problematic to cancel like this. How could he complain about waiting when he had been enjoying time with another woman? My absence should have been a minor issue for him. It felt as if he thought I was oblivious to everything. Ted began to complain to his mother, who had come to the door. "What's happening, Ted? It's late and noisy," she said. "Mom, Sophia, and I had plans for dinner, but she suddenly canceled and won't even talk to me now," Ted lamented, casting himself as the victim. My mother-in-law joined in with her usual sarcastic remarks. "Really, Sophia? You left without a word, can't manage the household properly, neglect your in-laws, and are so irresponsible. I was looking forward to our dinner plans and even adjusted my work schedule for it. To think she would cancel on such an important commitment with her husband. Was she out playing? I shudder to think what would happen if you had children." As my mother-in-law unjustly criticized me, the thought of exposing Ted's affair flashed through my mind. But what Ted said next was even more shocking than his mother's taunts. "There's no need to worry about that. Sophia can't have children, and she's already 30. I've given up on the idea of having kids with her," Ted said matter-of-factly. I had kept my infertility a secret, confiding only in Ted before we married. I didn't want to become his wife without him knowing, out of fear of hurting him. I had asked him not to tell anyone, and he had promised to keep it confidential. To have it exposed so callously was beyond belief. "Oh, so Sophia can't have children. Totally useless, isn't she?" my mother-in-law sneered, further deepening the wound. I had chosen the wrong person. We'd been deceived all along. After all, she only clung to the marriage because she didn't want to lose it, realizing she might not have another chance. Overwhelmed by the betrayal, I put on my headphones, cranked up the volume, and tried to drown out the world with music. That night, sleep eluded me. Every time I closed my eyes, Ted's infidelity replayed in my mind. I stopped the music, and the echoes of earlier conversations felt like they were tearing my heart apart with sadness and pain. Weeks later, Ted's relatives were coming to our house for a marriage celebration. I hadn't wanted any celebration, but my mother-in-law had taken it upon herself to organize one. She told the relatives that I was a restaurant chef and handed me a list of dishes to prepare. Although the list was extensive, cooking was my greatest joy. I decided to pour my heart into it, immersing myself in the process. It provided relief from daily stress and evoked fond memories of cooking with my parents. On the day of the celebration, around 10 relatives gathered at our modest living room, which, though small, managed to accommodate everyone. "Wow, the food looks delicious. You prepared all this." The relatives marveled at the dishes. Their enjoyment and compliments brought tears of joy to my eyes. "I'm so glad you enjoy my cooking," I said, bowing slightly. "Thank you." Their responses were heartwarming. "Of course it's delicious. We should be thanking you. Please make it again." Just then, my mother-in-law, seemingly dissatisfied with the praise I was receiving, interjected. "It's not that great. The dishes are too rich and greasy for everyday use. They give me heartburn and might raise my blood pressure." Is she trying to kill me? Her comment soured the atmosphere immediately. Ted, engrossed in his phone, remained oblivious to the shift in mood. My mother-in-law continued, "I've heard her family's restaurant is popular, but it's just in a small country place. The customers are low quality and the food is coarse. Besides, she didn't even finish high school, can't hold down a decent job, and can't have kids. What a dud for a daughter-in-law." The relatives' looks turned cold. A woman close to my age whispered to another, their whispers only adding to the sting of my mother-in-law's harsh words. "I don't know how you put up with her," I murmured with a forced smile. "But this is the last time." With that, I stood up and made a bold announcement. "Everyone, please take a look at this," I said, holding up my smartphone. The screen displayed a photo of Ted in an embrace with another woman. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to the image. "What are you doing?" Ted shouted, rushing towards me. "What am I doing? I'm just showing the truth," I replied loudly, facing his anger head-on. "What on earth is this about?" Ted's mother asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know. This is a lie. I would never do such a thing," Ted stammered, trying to maintain his composure. His mother looked between us, clearly shocked but still trying to support his claims. I took a deep breath, ready to lay everything bare. "Ted has been having an affair. I hired a detective agency to gather evidence, and these photos are authentic." "A detective agency?" Ted exclaimed, his voice rising in disbelief. "How could you?" "I've also recorded all the harassment I've endured from you," I continued, cutting him off. "I will be claiming compensation for my mental distress, and I will also be pursuing damages from you, Rose." Ted and his mother started to retort, their voices filled with defensiveness. Hiring a detective is such a cowardly move. You should be grateful you even married Ted. His mother snapped. And it's all your fault, making Ted marry you and causing us discomfort, Ted added, trying to shift the blame. Their words felt hollow. The evidence was irrefutable. The affair and the harassment were undeniable. Is it a lie, Ted? Even if you were harassed, it doesn't change the fact of the affair, I said with a calm smile. One of the relatives who had earlier whispered encouragement spoke up. Sophie, you did well. Thank you, I replied, feeling a surge of relief and clarity for the first time in a long while. The divorce was finalized successfully. In the aftermath, Ted's affair became known at his company, leading to his transfer from the head office to a different branch. It seemed he and his mother moved to a new place, likely closer to his new job. As for me, after receiving the alimony from Ted and his mother, I felt a new sense of freedom and closure. I decided to return to my parents' house for a while. My parents were initially taken aback by my divorce but welcomed me with open arms, saying nothing about the situation. As I considered whether to help out at the family restaurant or pursue further studies in cooking, my father gave me some invaluable advice. Why don't you go abroad? It might be challenging, but the experiences you'll gain will be worth it. This restaurant will be here waiting for you when you return. It was clear that my parents understood my true desires. Taking my father's advice to heart, I used the alimony to fund my journey abroad. I immersed myself in the world of cooking, training under renowned chefs and working at a prestigious 3-star restaurant. During this time, I met a man from France. Despite a brief courtship, our shared passion for cooking forged a strong bond between us, and we eventually married. Together, we became partners who could inspire and elevate each other's skills. After 5 years abroad, we returned to New York as promised. My parents had kept the restaurant thriving in my absence. Upon our return, my husband began showcasing his culinary skills there. The restaurant's unique flavors and stunning presentations drew even more attention, making it more vibrant and popular than ever before. Having now taken over the restaurant from my parents, my husband and I lead a fulfilling life together, dedicating ourselves to our craft. One day, I received a letter from my former mother-in-law. Her words were filled with apology and reflection. She wrote, I also received harsh criticisms from my own mother-in-law, particularly about my cooking and housekeeping. I admit that I was jealous of your culinary skills and took it out on you. Now, as I cook for myself, I strive to recreate your flavors, though I doubt I'll ever match them. I hope, though it may seem unlikely, that you might taste my cooking someday. I am truly sorry. Her heartfelt letter touched me deeply, and I felt a subtle shift in my feelings toward her. I hope that one day we can share a meal together with smiles and understanding. Until then, I am committed to continuing my journey of improving my culinary skills.
Do you want to take a little trip to the neighboring town and visit Saza Park sometime? Saza Park? The one where you can barbecue and it's a huge nature park? Yeah, the one. It's supposed to be great weather the day after tomorrow. How about it? My friend Kara invited me, and I said yes right away. The day after tomorrow is a makeup holiday for preschool, so the park should be pretty empty.
Hey, wait a minute. Isn't that Mrs. Sanders?
Suddenly I heard someone call my name, and I turned around, surprised.
I thought so. You're Amy, right?
The person seemed to recognize me, but I had no idea who they were, so I just stood there blankly.
Oh, sorry, you probably don't remember me. I'm Dan from the sales department at the same company as your husband, Tom. We met at a company dinner once.
Oh, Dan from Tom's company. Yes, I remember now. What a coincidence running into you here. I explained that I was out with friends and the kids because of the preschool holiday.
Are you from around here?
We came from the next town over. Is your daughter Anna doing well? She must be in 5th grade by now, right?
Yeah, wow. Amy, you're brave for taking in someone else's child.
I froze with a smile on my face, not sure what he was talking about.
So is it hard raising a stepchild compared to your own?
I have 2 daughters, Mia, who's in 2nd grade, and Lucy, who's in preschool. Both of them are my biological children. Dan kept talking about a stepchild, but I had no clue what he was referring to. Could he be mistaking Tom for someone else at work? Hey, what's going on? Kara came back with the kids, calling out from a few feet away. I wanted to get back to them, but Dan's words were still bothering me. Oh, nothing. Just bumped into someone I know. You guys go ahead and start on the picnic. Kara gave me a big thumbs up in response before heading back.
Well, stepchildren or not, if you love and raise them together, it doesn't make a difference. Tom has always been the decisive type. When he decided to take in Anna, I wondered if both you and his ex were okay with it.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Dan, have you met Tom's ex-wife?
Yeah, a long time ago.
I never heard anything about Tom being married before, and I was completely shocked, but I tried to keep calm so Dan wouldn't notice. That's surprising. I didn't know Tom had been married before.
Mom, come eat. Those sandwiches are really good.
My daughter Lucy came running over, beaming. It was too late to stop Dan from interacting with her.
Hi there, what's your name?
I'm Lucy.
Well, that's a lovely name. Do you like your sister Sarah?
My sister's name is Mia, not Sarah. Who are you?
Dan froze, then looked up at me with a confused expression. I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled awkwardly. The air between us grew thick with awkwardness. I could tell that Dan wanted to leave, while I desperately wanted to know more.
Come on, Mom, let's go back.
Did I say something wrong? I should get going. My family's waiting.
As he started to leave, I called after him. Wait, I'm sorry. I didn't understand anything you were saying earlier. What's this about a stepchild? I was trying to get more information from him. Oh no, I'm sorry. I must have made a mistake. But there's something about what you said that I can't just brush off.
What do you mean?
I didn't know Tom had been married before, let alone had a child. Could you tell me more? Dan hesitated, then apologized.
I'm sorry, but I can't tell you anything more. I shouldn't have said anything in the first place.
I watched as he walked away, regret heavy in the air. I felt lost and confused. I took Lucy's hand and walked back to Kara.
What's up?
Kara leaned in, sensing something was wrong. I couldn't tell her everything, but I was too shaken to pretend nothing had happened. It was someone from Tom's company. He told me something that really shocked me. Kara thought for a moment.
Amy, why don't you head home early? I can watch the kids until later and drop Lucy off for you.
I hesitated.
Seriously, it's fine. Take care of yourself.
Kara gave me a reassuring smile as she packed up the lunchbox and waved me off.
Drive safe.
I was overwhelmed with gratitude. Even on the drive home, I couldn't shake Dan's words. Could Tom really have been married before and had a child named Sarah? If so, where is Sarah now? I sighed deeply. Maybe Dan didn't know everything, and Tom had given custody to his ex-wife. Otherwise, this was like something out of a horror movie. I am a stay-at-home mom, and Tom's salary goes directly into our shared account, which I manage. I handle all our finances, so it's impossible for Tom to be sending money for child support without me knowing. Back home, I couldn't focus on anything. I stared at the family photo on the living room shelf. We had taken it during a trip last year. Tom, the kids, and I, all smiling happily. Looking at Tom's face, I couldn't see any signs of deception or secrets. Could he really be hiding such a huge part of his life? Dropping Lucy off with a smile, Kara brought me back to reality.
You're lucky to have such good friends.
Lucy's bright smile made me grateful for Kara's support.
Feeling a little better?
Yeah, thanks to you, I've had some time to calm down.
You looked really shaken earlier. Whatever it is, don't let it affect the kids too much. If you ever need help, I'm here. We've got each other's backs, right?
Kara's advice was just what I needed. I was lucky to have such a thoughtful friend. Yeah, you're right. I need to act normal around the kids. That evening, I did the usual routine, bathing the kids, helping Mia with her homework, and preparing dinner. Tom came home around the usual time.
Hey, I'm starving.
He loosened his tie and plopped down on the couch. He had no idea I'd learned about his secret. Tom was always laid back and didn't sweat the small stuff, which was one of the reasons I married him. I never sensed any malice or deception from him. He wasn't the type to hide things. If I confronted him, he'd probably be flustered and spill everything, but I didn't have enough information yet. If I confronted him now, he could easily deny it. I didn't want to raise his suspicions, so I decided to keep quiet for now. Should I mention running into Dan? Would Dan tell Tom that we'd spoken? Would it seem strange if I didn't mention it? The kids and I went to Saza Park with Kara today.
Oh, sounds like you had fun. Did Lucy play a lot?
Yeah, I had so much fun, but Mommy went home early.
Why did you leave early?
I wasn't feeling well and didn't want to use the public restrooms. Kara watched Lucy for me.
Are you feeling better now?
Yeah, I'm fine. Oh, and I ran into someone from your company at the park. Dan from sales.
Dan? What did you guys talk about?
He said we'd met at a company dinner, but I didn't really remember. Lucy was tugging at my clothes, so we just said hello and parted ways. Tom seemed relieved, though it could have been my imagination. After dinner, Tom played with the kids and then settled down for his usual evening routine, beer in hand, watching TV. Everything seemed normal, but I couldn't stop looking at him differently. Tears welled up unexpectedly. I rushed to the bathroom, turned on the shower, and cried silently. Even if I'd known about Sarah before we got married, I probably still would have married Tom. What hurt was that he had hidden it for 9 years. Why didn't he tell me? Did he want to protect our family? But what concerned me most was Sarah's whereabouts. If Tom had given her to his ex, that would be a relief, but Dan didn't mention anything like that. Dan seemed to think Tom was raising Sarah. Could that really be the case? Sarah would be around the same age as Mia. Where is she now? I went to bed with a heavy heart, the questions still swirling in my mind. The next morning while doing housework, the landline phone rang. It was rare for that phone to ring, and the caller ID showed it was from Tom's office. Maybe Tom had forgotten his cell phone. I answered it, but it wasn't Tom. It was Dan.
Thank you for your time yesterday. After talking it over with the company, there's some additional information I'd like to share with you. Could you give me your personal cell number?
His tone was professional, probably to avoid being overheard. I was hesitant, but Dan didn't seem like a bad person, so I gave him my number.
Thank you. May I call you in about 10 minutes?
Sure. 10 minutes later, my cell phone rang.
Amy, I'm really sorry about yesterday. Tom just went into a meeting, so I can talk freely now. I need to be quick, though. This morning, Tom asked me what we talked about yesterday. How much did you tell him?
I just said you said hello, and then we parted ways quickly because of the kids.
Good. That's what I told him too. But he's still suspicious of me for even saying hello to you. We need to be careful from now on.
I felt this was my last chance to learn more. Do you have time tomorrow morning? Could we meet at the same park we were at yesterday?
Yes, my wife will meet you there. She can tell you more.
I was surprised Dan's wife was getting involved, but agreed. Thank you. I'll be there. The next day, I arrived at the park and saw Dan's wife waiting for me. We greeted each other and moved to a nearby cafe.
I'm really sorry for the trouble my husband caused you.
Oh no, it's fine. I need to know everything about Tom, please. Dan's wife hesitated, then met my eyes.
My name is Sarah. I'm Tom's ex-wife.
I was stunned. Wait, what? You're Dan's wife and Tom's ex-wife?
Yes, that's right. But Tom doesn't know I'm married to Dan now.
This was too much to take in. Can you explain how that's even possible?
Tom, Dan, and I were all colleagues at the same company. We were part of a small group of 8 who started together. We were even assigned to the same branch office after training. The company's new hire training was intense, and we all lived in dorms for 6 months. We became really close. During that time, I developed feelings for Tom, and we started dating. Dan was dating someone else back then and was happy for us. After the training period, Tom and I moved in together to save on rent. But once we started living together, things quickly fell apart.
Sarah paused, sipping her coffee. What happened?
Tom's friendly, easygoing personality made him popular with women. There was a senior female colleague who took a liking to him. Tom wasn't interested, but I became insanely jealous. It became too much and he broke up with me. But right around that time I found out I was pregnant, so we got married.
And that baby was Anna?
Yes, I was overjoyed, thinking that this would bring Tom back to me. But once Tom's heart had strayed, I couldn't win him back. Our marriage was purely out of obligation. I always suspected him of cheating, even though he wasn't. It broke me mentally. In the end, Tom left, taking baby Anna with him.
Wait, what? He took the baby with him? How could he take her from her mother like that?
I think he believed I wasn't capable of raising her in my mental state. And he might have been right. I was completely lost after he left with Anna. I couldn't work, or even take care of myself. I quit my job and disappeared from his life entirely.
I started to say something, but Sarah cut me off.
A few years later, I ran into Dan, and he told me that Tom had remarried. He even showed me pictures of Anna, saying she was doing well. I hadn't seen her since she was a newborn, so I didn't want to confuse her by reappearing in her life. I just wanted to quietly wish for her happiness from afar. Dan and I both thought Anna was living with Tom. That's why Dan told you what he did.
Sarah bowed her head again in apology. So Tom lied to Dan about Anna, too? I had no idea he was even married before. He's never mentioned anything about a daughter. Where on earth is Anna?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what to do anymore.
Sarah started to cry and my heart ached for her. How old is she now?
She's 11.
How long have you and Dan been married?
6 months. Dan proposed to me after we reconnected. I had been asking Dan for information about Anna ever since we met again. He was kind enough to ask Tom about her casually during their conversations.
I wanted to know something that had been on my mind. Was it a coincidence that Dan and I met at the park?
Yes, it really was.
I want to believe you, but it's hard to trust anyone at this point. I've been living with Tom for nearly 10 years. If what you say about Anna is true, I want to find out where she is. But I also want to believe that Tom wouldn't hide something like this from me. Tom comes home at the same time every day, spends weekends with the family, and never goes anywhere alone. I don't think he could be hiding another family. When I said this, Sarah started crying again.
I'm sorry.
Sarah handed me a small envelope and stood to leave.
My contact information is in there. If you learn anything about Anna, please call me.
She left the cafe, and I stared at the envelope for a while. Mom, you dropped your rice in your soup. My kids were watching me carefully, worried. I apologized, cleaned up, and tried to focus. I can't stop thinking about this. Tom's going to get suspicious if I don't snap out of it. Hey, how about we go visit Grandma and Grandpa this weekend?
We're going to Grandma's? Yay!
Mia and Lucy's faces lit up, and they stood up on their chairs excited.
Whoa, sit down. Sure, but why so sudden?
A friend from high school wants to catch up, and I thought I could stay at my parents' place. The lie came naturally, but it sparked an idea in my mind.
All right, tell your parents I said hi. I'll just relax at home and have a lazy weekend. Take your time.
The kids rushed to finish their dinner so they could call Grandma. Tom didn't seem bothered at all about us going. I had never doubted his kindness, but now I wondered if that was why he was so eager to let us go. That weekend, I took the kids to my parents' place. After dropping them off, I drove back to a coffee shop near the station. I hated what I was about to do. I was never the kind of person to sneak around, but I couldn't stop now. I opened the envelope Sarah had given me the night before. Inside was her contact information and a single photo. My heart tightened as I looked at it. It was a picture of newborn Anna with Sarah and a younger Tom smiling proudly. I pulled out my phone and checked Tom's GPS location. For hours, there had been no movement, and I began to panic. Would Tom really stay home all day? Just as I thought about moving to another spot, his GPS location started to move. He was on his bike. I quickly paid for my coffee and got back in the car following his signal. Tom was headed in the opposite direction from my parents' house, and I had to rush to keep up. After about 30 minutes, the GPS signal stopped, showing that Tom had arrived at his destination. I parked around the corner and walked toward the location, a secure low-rise apartment building. I couldn't get inside, but I stood outside, unsure of what to do. I didn't have much time. If I didn't leave soon, my parents and the kids would worry. What would Tom do next? Would he leave soon or stay for a while? I decided to call Sarah and update her on the situation. She and Dan arrived about an hour later. Just when we thought we'd have to wait longer, Tom appeared at the entrance. He was walking arm in arm with a tall woman, clearly in a close relationship. I covered my mouth in shock as Dan put a comforting hand on my shoulder. Sarah and I exchanged glances as we both tried to hold back tears.
That woman is Lisa, a former colleague. Tom was seeing her while married to Sarah.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So this relationship has been going on since before we got married?
I don't know, but Lisa left the company a while ago. They could have broken up and gotten back together. I don't see Anna anywhere. Where's Anna?
Sarah looked at them anxiously.
We don't know yet. Let's go talk to them.
Tom! I called out loudly, making him jump. He turned around, startled.
Amy? Dan? Sarah? What is going on? Why are you all together?
That's what I should be asking. What are you doing here? Tom quickly unlinked his arm from Lisa's. Dan was already taking pictures on his phone. Lisa, you've been involved with Tom since he was married to Sarah, haven't you? This has been going on for over 10 years, right?
How do you know all this?
Oh, hey, Amy, nice to finally meet you. I'm Lisa, Tom's ex-old fling.
Lisa smiled smugly as she introduced herself, and I felt a wave of anger rise in me. Tom's eyes darted nervously between all of us, clearly at a loss. Explain yourself.
This isn't what it looks like, I swear. Where's Anna? Is she inside? Is Lisa raising her?
Tom turned pale at Sarah's questioning. Where is she? Tom swayed on his feet and sat down on a nearby planter. He lowered his head.
She's not here.
Sarah's face contorted in pain.
What do you mean? Where is she then?
Tom's body shook as Sarah grabbed his shoulders, but he remained limp.
All right. If you want to know where Anna is, I'll tell you.
The three of us gasped at Lisa's sudden outburst.
Stop glaring at me. Anna's perfectly fine. I never wanted kids, so I made sure she was taken care of. I placed her in a children's home.
Lisa said it as if it were the most normal thing in the world. You put her in a facility 2 states away? Why didn't you keep her with you?
Lisa told me it was best for her. She said if I wanted to marry you, I couldn't tell you about her.
What? If you wanted to marry me, you should have told me the truth and ended things with Lisa.
But Lisa said she didn't care who I married as long as our thing continued. I was never in love with Lisa. She's just the only one who knew about Anna. I was scared to do it all alone.
Sarah, Dan, and I were speechless at Tom's childish reasoning. I loved how kind and easygoing you were, Tom. I married you because I thought you'd never lie to me or treat someone's life like it didn't matter. I never thought you were capable of such cruelty. People say that even spouses are strangers, and I guess that's true. I believed with all my heart that you were the one for me, but everything we built has crumbled, just like that. If you'd been honest with me from the start, I would have taken Anna in and raised her with you. I wouldn't have cared about your past.
Wait, if that's how you feel, we can do it now. Let's bring her home.
No, Tom. It's too late for that. Anna's been out of your life for 11 years, and she has been heartbroken all this time. You didn't even think about what it meant to take her away from her mother, and then you just discarded her. It's unforgivable.
I'm sorry. Please, Amy, I love you. I love you and the kids. I've always loved you.
Tom grabbed my legs, begging for forgiveness. Let go of me. I pushed him away as he collapsed, sobbing.
Tom, Lisa, neither of you deserves any forgiveness. We will be pursuing this legally, and you'll have to face the consequences of what you've done.
Sarah said firmly before we all left them behind. Dan and Sarah left to meet Anna at the facility. By the time I got back home, it was dark. My mom smiled when I walked in, unaware of what had happened. But after the kids went to bed, I told her everything. My parents were furious and insisted I didn't have to go back to Tom's house. I filed for divorce, and Tom lost his job after Dan explained the situation to their boss. Tom's reputation was destroyed. He now works in a small town as a warehouse worker. DNA tests confirmed that Sarah was Anna's biological mother, and Sarah was reunited with her. When Sarah picked her up from the facility, she didn't recognize her, but seeing her mother's face made her cry. Sarah vowed to never let go of Anna again and promised to pour all her love into raising her. Sarah, Dan, and I have stayed close, and they sometimes watch my kids when I'm at work. Our relationship is complicated, but we managed to build a good friendship. If Dan hadn't mentioned Sarah, I might still be living happily with Tom, unaware of his betrayal. But eventually, the truth would have come out, and everything would have fallen apart. I know Mia and Lucy have been hurt by all of this, but I hope one day they'll understand why I made the decisions I did. For now, I'll keep moving forward, determined to live my best life for them.